Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the New Jersey Devils and if they'll make the playoffs despite the fact that Jack Hughes will be out for the rest of the season. But before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. Being said, let's get on into it. So Jack Hughes was taken first overall in his draft class and has been able to back it up by being first in his class with points and has been just a pivotal player in the past few seasons for New Jersey and looks to be, again, probably one of their better, if not the best player for them, which is always a great thing to know, considering that he is under a long-term deal with the Devils. And this has been a really good season in terms of resurgence, as the Devils looked really good in 2023, failed to make the playoffs last year, and looked like they probably should again. But now with the news of Hughes being out for the year, really does cast some doubt as to whether or not the Devils will be able to get to the finish line and make the playoffs. So yes, the news of Hughes being out for the rest of the season happened yesterday, and this is something that comes at a terrible time as you realize that he won't be back until training camp, and this is going to be a shoulder surgery where you now understand the Devils have 19 games to try to get to the playoffs, and the road to that might be a little bit rocky. So there's going to be some adversity. They have got the opportunity to finish strong, even though they've lost 2 in a row. But either way, you understand that there's going to be some obstacles in their path. They sit third in the Metro, but the thing is, the team that is in the final wildcard spot is behind them by just 5 points. And then you understand a team like the Columbus Blue Jackets is hot on their heels, and they are in the first wildcard spot. So there is the very real possibility here soon that if the Devils get into a little bit of a slump, the Columbus Blue Jackets would be that team that is likely occupying third, whereas the Devils get pushed down into the wild card, and that's where things get scary because if you're top 3 in your division, you get to make it to the playoffs. If you are battling for points, obviously whatever happens, happens, and this is where things get a little bit messy because there are a lot of teams pushing for those final wildcard spots. Ottawa is one of those teams that they could be duking it out with, as the Sens are still there. And again, I wrote them off a couple weeks ago, but it looks like they could actually go out there and make it. Then you have a team like the New York Rangers, where we're wondering, are they going to make moves? They've been better recently. They are a side that is just on the cusp of making it into, again, the playoffs as a wild card, which would be a little bit weird. But they are a thorn in New Jersey's side. The rivalry is real and there. Then you have other teams like the Detroit Red Wings. Maybe they have lost 3 in a row. However you understand, since Todd McCullough took over, they have, I think, the 5th best points percentage in the league. Mind you, they've lost 3 in a row. So imagine if they hadn't done that and where they would stand. The Red Wings, again, pose a threat as a team that has seen a lot of failure and are trying to get there after barely missing out last season. And then you throw in a team like the Montreal Canadiens, a side that I really did write off after their 1-7-1 period before the start of the Four Nations face-off. They've won 5 in a row, and I believe we're just 7 points back right now of the Devils, and that's why I'm so concerned, because there's like 5 teams right there that could pose a serious threat to the Devils actually going out and finishing the job and hoping to maybe get back to at least the second round like they did back in 2023. The East is, again, not a place that's very forgiving unless you are like a top 2 seed. The good news is MoneyPuck.com actually gives them a good chance of making it at 85%, but I'm going to be honest, I think that's a little bit high. I think one of the good things here is the fact that they have the 19th hardest remaining strength of schedule for the course of the year. That could be, again, something that is going to get them there, but I think it's more due to the fact that teams like Detroit, Columbus, and New York all have hard remaining strength of schedules. The Red Wings have the hardest. The Blue Jackets, I believe, have the 3rd hardest, and then the Rangers have the 5th hardest. So that is all nice, especially because some of these teams have games in hand compared to the Devils, but you are, again, relying on those teams to perform poorly and then you to do well, and that's not just really a guarantee when you lose a guy like Hughes. At this stage, we're talking about less than 20 games, and some teams really could go out there and try to make moves, and that's where I'm like, for New Jersey, that's why I think 85% seems pretty high, because I just think momentum at this stage really rides out more than anything, especially if some other teams are getting better and the Devils don't make any real moves. Now, nobody said that making the playoffs after losing Hughes was going to be easy, but the thing is, this team has been occupying a playoff spot for the course of the year, and Hughes didn't miss 70 games. There's about a quarter of the season left, and they have to find a way to make it happen. You understand that they've made investments before with guys like Timo and guys like Markstrom. Again, they have given up assets to try to make this team competitive, and I think that the way that they finish out 2025 is really important in how you kind of view the team, whereas 2023 looked fantastic. If they can't make the playoffs now in 19 games without Jack, it is a huge concern because this team has big aspirations, but I would say that if they aren't able to do it without one of their better players, then they are a side that you kind of worry about for the future, about how realistic are those expectations, and should they be worried about what the future looks like for this team when everything seemed so rosy 2 years ago. And I'm going to be honest, the question now becomes, do they make a move? We have seen other teams out east go out there and do it. The Tampa Bay Lightning literally yesterday, and then the Florida Panthers with the whole Seth Jones trade. Two teams that, of course, are on a different timeline than New Jersey and have a little bit less time to work with. But still, this is where you realize a team like the Maple Leafs. Austin Matthews recently said that he was hoping that they would make some moves toward the deadline. That's in the case of the Devils, understanding at least three teams that likely will or have already made moves. And then there's others likely to come over this deadline period. And with, of course, Hughes' deal being moved to LTIR, there is a little bit of room to make something happen. I'm not saying that it has to be anything massive, but try to maybe add a little bit to help this team actually get to the playoffs. Because unlike those other teams, I don't think it's the end-all be-all if New Jersey's not in the Stanley Cup final. I don't think that it's like Tampa Bay especially, and I don't think it's like teams like Toronto and maybe New York and whatnot over the course of this. As you saw, of course, the Rangers make a trade earlier in the year that was kind of aggressive with the whole Miller deal. So I think for New Jersey, it's more about just getting there, because the worst case scenario for them would be either they don't make it, that's an obvious, but B, that they miss out, and then a team like the New York Rangers make it, which is their rival. You would hate to see that happen for them when this looked like such a promising start to the year where they were kind of flirting with possibly winning the division. Did a video about that, and times have really gotten hard since then. So at the end of the day, do I think they'll make it? The answer is I'm not really sure. I'm not convinced that they'll miss. I'm not convinced that they'll make. There's just a lot of things at play here that are out of their control. Some things that clearly are in their control, and I think the good thing is they are in the driver's seat. They aren't a team that just lost Hughes that is, like New York or Montreal, I think specifically, that's like 7 points back of a playoff spot, or at least them. So they just have to do what they can to go out there and try to finish the job. I think that, it's kind of tough, because do I see them being top 8 in the East? Yes, I do, but I've also had that view for the entirety of the season, whereas now this is kind of a whole new season, if you will, when it comes down to the final quarter of the year. I know, again, we can say over and over and over again, you just have to do enough to get there, but it's easier said than done when some other teams have shown a lot of promise. Columbus was recently very, very hot. Montreal's hot. Detroit could catch fire again, and some other teams are really starting to catch up after long, slow periods. So I don't exactly know how this is going to transpire, but I think for the Devils, you got to find a way to try to avoid that catastrophe where you miss out on the postseason. But anyway, what do you think is going to happen here without Jack Hughes? Do you think the Devils make the playoffs? Do you think they miss? And if they make it, how far do they go? If they miss, how many teams are in front of them? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you love hockey, alright.
Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.